In order to demonstrate your skills and experience, you will often need to explain situations in the past. We've already reviewed some of the past tenses, and in this section we'll continue by addressing some of the common problems using the simple past, reviewing the past perfect, and reviewing the past continuous. These last two tenses can help make your stories more clear and impactful. That said, if you don't feel very comfortable using these advanced past tenses, you can probably give a simpler explanation of a situation by simply using the simple past. So it's up to you to think about your English level and how sophisticated or simple you want to be. Let's get to it. First, we'll focus on the simple past, specifically on the common mistakes in irregular verbs and regular verbs with the pronunciation of the ed ending. Let's start with irregular verbs. Here are some examples of irregular verbs that frequently come up in interview situations. The past of meet is met. I met the client at a trade fair. How did you meet? We met at a trade fair. The past of say is said. They said good things about the product. The past of tell is told. A colleague told us that they did things differently in his previous company. The past of fall is fell. Costs fell by 20% thanks to the changes we made in production. Last example, the past of choose is chose. We chose the design based on customer research. Next, let's move on to regular verbs. So easy to write, yet so tricky to pronounce. We'll break it up in parts. First, let's focus on the verbs that end in a D or T sound. When we make the simple past of these verbs, we'll add an extra syllable that sounds like an id at the end. Here are some examples. Want has a T sound at the end, and the past is wanted with an extra syllable, id, wanted. Our client wanted more features. The past of need is needed. They needed our help. The past of rent is rented. We rented the equipment instead of buying it. The past of decide is decided. I decided to report the issue. On the other hand, there are the verbs where we don't add an extra syllable. There's simply a d or t sound at the end. Again, let's look at examples. The past of realize is realized. Notice that I'm not saying realized. There's no additional syllable, simply realized. We realized there was a mistake. The past of sign is signed. We signed a contract with a new supplier. You can find many more verbs listed in the language sheet. Use that to help you prepare your examples. Now we'll move on to the past perfect. This tense is generally used to refer to an action that happened before another action in the past. Let's look at examples. I knew everything was perfect because I had checked the report the day before. In this situation, I'm referring to events in the past. I knew everything was perfect. And there's another event that happened before that. I had checked. I knew everything was perfect because I had checked earlier. To form the past perfect, we use had and the past participle. Let's see some more examples. Actual sales exceeded the targets we had set at the beginning of the year. By the time the products arrived, we had already lost significant revenue opportunities. The success of the campaign was unlike anything I had ever seen before. Finally, as the third past tense that we see in this section, let's move on to the past continuous. To make the past continuous, we use was or were and the verb in the ing form. Again, let's see this in examples. I was working for a small company and I was still taking classes. Here, the past continuous is the best tense to use because we're giving a description of the past, a background to our story. In the next example, the team was growing quickly and I was learning a lot. Here, we can use the past continuous because we're speaking about a progressive action, something that was ongoing. Let's look at another. We were importing most of the parts from Asian countries when the shipping crisis started. In this case, we're using the past continuous to refer to an action that was happening and was then interrupted by another overlapping event. Again, look at the examples in the language sheet to help you understand what is the best tense to use in your examples. That concludes a review of past tenses for this course, and you can find a summary of everything that we've seen along with more examples and frequently used irregular verbs in the language sheet.